Hello, everyone. Hello and welcome. My name is Michelle Howe, and today I am honored to speak with Celia Fenn from Star Child Global. Celia has been, she's a gem. I found her on Facebook. I read one of her posts and I said, I need to talk to that lady. So welcome, Celia.
Hello, Michelle, and thank you for inviting me. It's wonderful to be here.
It's my pleasure, really. I printed out your whole bio and I'm looking at this, and we spent a little time talking before this recording, and I'm like, oh my gosh, there's so much to say here.
I must be so old.
Well, you do not look it, so that's perfect. That's perfect.
I've been doing this for a while, so yeah, it will be good to talk to you about some of the things I've experienced.
Yeah, well, I guess starting at the beginning, my crew, my peeps, they're all awakening. They're empaths. Maybe they knew they were empaths, maybe they didn't, but they're going through a process now, which is really a self-healing journey, ascension, whatever word we want to, they're trying to live their lives, and there's these things happening which explain a lot about them, which is extremely rewarding, but it's challenging to be a light worker. It's challenging to be an awakening empath. It's challenging even for the people that don't know that even this is a thing. They're challenged. So I want this to speak to them, but I want to share first a little bit of, the breadth of what your life has been, which is amazing to me. It's just amazing to me. So if you can just give what you have done, what did your life look like, and how did you get to the beginning of it? And
you mean from the time I was born, or the time my second birth when I awakened?
Yes, yes, all of the above. All of the above.
Well, basically, as I mentioned earlier, I was born empathic and what I would call psychic, so I was always aware of that. I remember seeing Archangel Michael when I was 5, and I opened a door and there was this huge angel, and I was like, oh, and I ran inside to tell my mom there's this angel in the garden, and she said, yeah, went on with cooking or whatever. So to me, it was like, wow, what was that? And then it was almost as though he appeared to say, well, I'm watching over you and we're going to work later, but, carry on with your little life. So I did. And my parents became very conservative Christians, very, very fundamentalist, and they didn't like the whole psychic thing. So that was kind of shut down in me. And as I grew older, I became much more, I wouldn't say I was atheist, but I wasn't interested in the spiritual side of life. And I went from high school into university studies. And strangely enough, I came back to spirituality via my studies, because I did a liberal arts degree majoring in English. And I encountered feminism in literature, which fascinated me. And through that, met up with the goddess spirituality, the people like Starhawk, who was writing back in the 70s, is still around. She's amazing. But she was like a wake up for me. It's like, oh my goodness, look at this goddess culture. Look at this amazing feminine energy was predating patriarchy, but is now coming back and can be felt by us. Today when we awaken, we've got Mary Magdalene and all these goddesses like all there for us. But back in the 70s, it was like, oh my goodness, this is new. This is amazing to actually discover the feminine, let's call it matriarchal lineage that predated patriarchy. So that was when I started going back towards spirituality. And then my big wake up was in 2001. It happened just 2 weeks before 9/11. So I was kind of in sync with what was going on. And then I went into the ascension process with all the symptoms, and as I said to you, my whole life fell apart, literally. And I had post-traumatic stress disorder and physical things, and dark night of the soul endlessly, so it was a very difficult reconnection. But probably took me about from 2001 to about 2006, 7 before I started really coming out of it.
Wow.
And
So hold on.
began teaching, began doing all the things I was doing. So yeah, that's to today, you know.
So when you were young, you saw Archangel Michael, but then you shut that down.
Well, nothing happened with it, you know, because my family wasn't encouraging that. And no, so it was like, okay. But I realized afterwards it was just like him saying, you know, hi, I'm here. See you later kind of thing, you know. I didn't really feel that I needed to be in any kind of strong connection with him at that point. Right. And in fact, when I did start channeling with Archangel Michael was 2003, 4, round about there. It was after I had learned how to channel. I was actually trained how to channel. It took me a year. And I worked with a group called the Council of Nine first. And then they said to me, okay, well, now you're a graduate. We're going to assign you to Archangel Michael. So then I was moved over to work with Archangel Michael, and whom I've worked with for now, I don't know, 20 years. So yeah, it was a long-term assignment, but it really took me around the world, and I met thousands of people and did the most amazing things, you know, as part of my mission, my soul purpose, which is to assist with ascension and to help people with their soul purpose and to go into this process and to become multidimensional and to be who they really are, who they really are in life. So it's been an exciting ride, I have to say, and continues to be.
Did you, so that second, that dark night of the soul or your awakening, did you, as a child, I mean, how did you do? Did you feel like everything was good and normal and everything was going well, and then all of a sudden you just like, how?
No, because I was empathic. I struggled with life. I found emotions and feelings, still to this day, people's emotions just wash over me, you know. Like even yesterday, I was interacting with someone and I took on all her sadness and whatever, and I had to go through my little ritual of saying, not mine, go away, you know, because I recognize it. But as a child, you don't understand. You live in this ocean of feelings and thoughts and whatever, and you don't understand what is yours and what is others and how it affects you. So I was, as a child, very anxious and very tended to be nervous, depressive. I know even in my 20s, I remember going to bed and just crying at night and thinking, well, what am I crying for? You know, and when I looked back, I understood what it was about, but it was largely to do with past lives and people around me and whatever. And it took me a very long time to learn how to be me and to recognize what is mine and what I can own for myself and what actually belongs out there and not doesn't need to be part of me.
So at this point, you're still very empathic.
Yeah.
You have to be vigilant, but it's not, doesn't take the same toll. It's not as confusing. Or
I've learned to recognize. You know, when I start feeling miserable or sad or any of those negative things, I say, okay, is it mine?
Yeah.
And then the mantra I have, if it's not, if it's no, let it go. If it's mine, you know, then I will, if I say yes, then I process. So if it's not mine, it goes. If it's mine, I process it and do whatever I need to do with it, because I believe you need to feel your feelings. You can't just say, oh, I'm not going to feel anything. But if I'm genuinely sad, then I will be sad and find out why am I sad and what can I do to nurture myself and, you know, make myself feel better or whatever. But it's that being the ability to recognize what is yours and what is not. I think is key to being an empath and being successful with empathic energies.
Mm-hmm. So your journey took you from psychic, healer, channel. What? Yeah, I mean, so you kind of dabbled in a lot of things, which sort of reminds me of me. I'm
I
looking.
didn't dabble, Michelle. We are skilled. I feel that it was more gaining skills so that when I reach this level, I can draw on a lot. You know, I do astrology, I've done massage, I've done aromatherapy, I've done shamanism. So when people talk about plant medicine, I can think about it from an aromatherapy's perspective or from a shamanic perspective. You know, I've got all those understandings of spiritual energies. So I think it was, and before that, I've always realized, because as I said to you, I studied English and I did a PhD in English, and then I taught at college level. And I've always felt that everything I learned there and my experience there is part of where I am now. I learned how to write, I learned how to express myself, I learned how to work with people. So almost my entire life has been about getting to this point where I can understand, recognize, and share with people the path I've been on.
And the path, and support them and where they're going.
Yeah, yeah.
And what they need
Because
to, you know.
you can be empathic in a good way, is that you can understand where they are and what they're feeling,
Yes.
and be able to support them in that transition.
Right. Create that space where it's actually, I find that the empath is holding such a beautiful energy in and of themselves that you can activate other people and help them release what needs to be released. Because most people in this world, I don't want to say most people, I see everybody as an empath to a degree, but most people don't know how to hold that. They are not, as I want to say, as connected to their spiritual energy.
Yeah.
And I like the idea and the reality, really, in my opinion, feeling. You need to feel like the joy in life. How do you get joy in life? It's a feeling, right?
Yeah, and I think that being empathic is a positive thing. You know, a lot of people think, oh, I'm empathic, it's a terrible thing, you know. But
Well,
it's actually very positive, because initially when we were created way back, we didn't speak, we didn't have language, we were empathic, you know, we're telepathic, whatever. We didn't actually rely on the mind and on language to the extent that we do today. And of course, everyone knows that both the mind, the ego, and language can be very slippery and very difficult, and misunderstandings arise. Whereas if you are empathically open from the heart, you feel the energies, and you know, there are no mistakes. What you feel is what you feel. It's much more of a clear channel than the mind and language itself.
yeah, there's all these, you know, what are we receiving? You can feel it, you can see it, you can think it, right? You can smell it, you can hear it, but what, you know, which channel and how much are you able to tap into, and where's your interest? So some people aren't very deep. They're not reading. One perfect example happened. I was at, usually I work out with a group of ladies online, and I stay home and I do my thing and I'm with them. I could see them, but I decided to go to the place, and I'm watching them interacting. It's part of just an empath nature, I think, is to observe. You're observing.
Yeah.
And what's behind the words somebody speaks, and what to say, what not to say. Because if you're very empathic, you can tune into what people's pains are, what not to say. All right. But not everyone has that empathic gift. So one of the ladies, she was just saying whatever would come into her head. And I'm thinking, she's gonna slap you now. like, and when people were all leaving, three of us were there. I was one of the three, and I'm like, they're talking. Oh, and one's going, well, you know, people don't really like her, may not like her because she just says. I'm like, but there's nothing. She goes, but there's nothing negative behind what she's saying. The problem is this person is just saying something, not tuning into the environment or the person that they're directing it to. They trigger that person. The person that's triggered is going to lash out. Now, mind you, some people might do this on purpose, right? If you have a manipulative, narcissistic type person, they might just get some enjoyment out of that.
Yeah.
But when I looked at the lady, I'm like, oh no, she has no idea that she is hitting on a bump in the road. She was sitting on it. And, you know, because of that, it taught me, I'm like, not everybody has the ability to tune into.
Yeah. I think it is something that maybe we suppress in childhood, because I think everyone has the ability, born with it, but it's whether it is
Active.
activated or useful in childhood. Maybe for her, it wasn't useful because it got her into trouble or whatever. So she turned it off.
Mm.
And now she doesn't use it, you know, because I think children, when they're in their formative years, they either switch on or turn off. And that's what the research I did with the indigo and crystal children, that these children are amazing. They're born with such incredible abilities. But they turn them off because they're so traumatized by parents who don't understand what they're about and what they can be. So you get, by the time they're in their teenage years, most indigos were into drugs and all sorts of things, self-destructive behavior patterns, because they felt they weren't being understood, or they weren't being accepted for the gifted people they were in terms of their psychic and telepathic abilities, you know, and other abilities that they had. So it is often a social thing that causes people to just turn off that ability. I really do feel everyone has it. I think it's an innate human ability.
I think that feeling, see, is people make, emotions is a type of a feeling. We all want to feel good. Why do we do the things we do? We want to feel loved. We want to feel good. So we are feeling, right? But the issue is we don't always want to resolve the feelings. We just want to stuff the ones that we don't like in the closet.
Maybe we can't, you know, because we've been brought up by maybe narcissistic or emotionally unavailable parents who were unable to process their own emotions and had no way of teaching us how to process ours. So I feel that pretty much applied to my background. So that when I hit ascension, you know, in 2001, I had to not only process all that stuff down stuff, but also learn how to process my own going forward, which was a huge thing. But absolutely necessary, because if you're going to go into ascension and into the new earth frequencies, you cannot be closed off, and you cannot not deal with what's going on inside of you, because as you become more powerful, you're just going to trigger everybody around you, which is what I did for a long time, you know, before I started ascension, because I had so much stuff stuck down. You know, I would go into a place and everybody would just lose it, and I would be sitting there thinking, what's wrong with these people? But looking back, I realized I was carrying so much repressed stuff. I was probably just triggering people. And had to learn how to own my own stuff, which was the dark night of the soul that went on for 4 or 5 years, to actually own it and process it and be okay with it, and then be able to move forward. So, you know, when people talk about ascension symptoms and what they're going through, sometimes it's a lot of stuff that's really been stuffed down and really has to be dealt with, and can't be dealt with in 5 minutes. Generally, it didn't happen in 5 minutes. It happened over years and on a very deep level. So it has to be processed over a period of time, and to let that really deep feeling of woundedness and lack, which really is what happens, because you end up feeling not good enough, you don't have what you need, that kind of feeling.
Yeah. And you're right on point, as far as, parents can't they can't be there for you if they don't know how to be there for them. So they don't know what this is. None of
and that generation of my parents, they had no idea, because their parents went through the Great Depression in the 20s, and they were completely the same way. You know, they had no idea how to handle what happened to them with the 2 world wars and the Depression and that huge shift. So their parents had no idea. They had no idea. So it's like we are the ones who are learning what it means to actually be human and deal with emotions and feelings.
Well, it's that we have the opportunity to do that now. I mean, I think in the past it was more, I don't want to say fight or flight. It was more we need to do this, and like, there wasn't that stability in some ways to even know that we have emotions and we need to look at the emotions, just get rid of them because you need to do this, and this. Like,
Well, this is again part of this, the indigo generation, because they came in with the purpose of smashing down what we can call patriarchy, you know, that system that says you don't look at your emotions, stuff them down, you know, just be the way you're meant to be. And the indigo said, like, no way. And they just went in there and did this emotional stuff and were very destructive in many ways, but they were meant to be, because they were opening a way for something new to take place. So most of us have been riding that wave of the indigo's destruction of that system, and
we're
connecting
still
with our
riding that
emotions.
wave. Are we still riding
Yeah,
that
but
wave?
I think, as I've said recently, I think that for the indigos, most of the indigos who were in their 20s and 30s back then are now in their late 30s and 40s. They're becoming leaders now. And it's becoming their role now to set up something new. So, you know, while things are falling apart, I think something new is also being set up
Absolutely.
by this generation. Because, as I said earlier, they were gifted. They were emotional. They were empathic. They were telepathic. They were all these things. And that's all there for them. They just need to connect with that and start building this new society, which we call maybe the new earth or whatever you want to call it, but this new society that is their purpose and their mission.
So to the empath, it's funny, I have a quiz that says, are you an empath? And I put it out there because I didn't know what the word empath was for 40 years of my life, and it would have explained a lot to me. It would have done a lot. But some people are like, oh, unfortunately, oh yeah, I'm saddled with that. Oh, like they're just not happy about it. And it's not that I've learned to see it as a gift because that's the way I want to see it. And
I
that's
think
go ahead, sorry.
I think it really is a gift.
It is a gift. It is a gift if you know how to use it. If you don't know how to use it, you're going to go around feeling everybody's stuff and being upset by everything you see. And then somebody said to me before, oh, I just thought all the empaths were just these really wounded people. If you had they're just the wounded people. I'm like, oh my God, is that in what world, you know?
Because you're sensitive. And if you're sensitive, then you must be a wounded person, you know. I discovered empathy quite early on in my spiritual life because I knew I was clairvoyant and I could see things and hear things. And I was sitting one day trying to work out what was my like superpower, you know. And I realized I actually feel things. I can see things, I can hear things, you know, because I'm clairvoyant and clairaudient and all that. But mostly I feel things. And I realized that empathy was my strongest way of reading people or reading situations or whatever. It was through feelings. They call it clairsentient as well, but they call it empathy. It's the same thing, basically. So it is a superpower. It's not a wounded thing. It's actually a gift.
Yeah.
It is part of your soul's functioning in your body. If you are empathic, it means your soul is working through you. You're not cut off from your soul.
Right. So when you went through your dark night of the soul, and what led to that? What did you realize? Like, I'm sure it was all divinely orchestrated, but how did your life shift? Like,
I'd like to say it was beautiful and elegant, but it felt like walking into a wall.
yes.
Smack. You know? It just like everything fell apart. And you know, I told you the exact date. It was full moon in 2001 in August, because I just remember like everything just fell apart at that moment. It was 2 weeks before 9/11. And I remember watching 9/11 and I was so shattered in myself. It didn't even make sense to me. You know, it really felt like everything was just collapsing. Everything, my life, my marriage, my family, everything. And everything, even my physical body. So I said, it was like walking into a wall and just nothing was ever the same again. So for me, ascension wasn't an elegant process. You know, I didn't one day wake up discovering something amazing. It was just like, okay, you're going to do this now. Yeah. And I must say that although there was a lot of, dare I call it, suffering involved, there were times when I did feel this amazing, peaceful, golden energy. And I would think, wow, if this is where we're going, this is amazing, you know. So there was this, like a what you call it, a forerunner, a kind of coming attractions of what you're going towards while you're dealing with all this. I could feel this beautiful energy that was rising, kind of Lemurian paradise energy that was being seeded on the earth. But it certainly wasn't, there was no great day when I woke up saying, oh, I'm ascending, you know. It was just like, what is this? What's happening? And I think this happens to a lot of people. You know, it's them, and you kind of wake up one day.
Just want to be, well, case in point, I would say, even for myself, as far as as far as what I've come, I'm like, why does every day need to be different? Why can't I just be the same every day? But every day brings a new teaching, a new, you know. And if you look at the history of where I've come, maybe from the outside, people may not notice, but I am hugely different than I've ever been. And I continue to evolve into something that I would never have. Go ahead, sorry.
You find that eventually you become so skilled at doing this thing called life, you know, that you kind of, I wouldn't say you avoid problems, but you know how to deal with them. You know, it's kind of, oh, here we go again. I've done this before. And like the empath thing, you just say, that's not mine, that's theirs. You know, so you develop a set of skills that mean you don't have to go down these holes. In fact, you can stay at your level, which is now what I call higher consciousness. And you monitor yourself. You know, how am I feeling? Am I grateful? Am I happy? Am I unhappy? And if so, why? And am I picking it up from someone else? Or is it mine? And do I need to process? So it's why they call it consciousness. You know, you're constantly conscious of what's going on in you and around you. And you're able and skilled enough to manage it without falling down black holes, you know, because you've done your work. Now, I'm not saying, you know, you could use, but you've dealt with your shadow, you've dealt with the black holes, you've dealt with your wounded child. And now you reach a point where you can be creative and you can manifest and be in this higher energy without going into the dark stuff all the time.
So from the breadth of your experience and what you've seen along the way, and moving yourself through these different cycles, are there favorite tools that you think are good for people to use when they are moving through the dark night of the soul, or the shadows, or the wounded child? What would you recommend? I mean, I've dabbled in all of them just to see what they are, and then certain things work amazing for a certain bit, and then I go on to
depends on the person. You know, what they are. For me, I found that I worked with meditation was a good one. I worked with creativity. I found that being creative and allowing your creativity to come up, which had been so pushed down by, because I did an academic background, so my ears are doing funny things. You know, when the ear, when the energy goes, woo, it's going like, okay, something's happening. Anyway, so yeah, something's happening. So I allowed myself to be creative and to do it in a flowing, not in the old way of being academic and I must get this right and it must be beautiful, but just expressing yourself intuitively through art or writing or whatever. I was doing dance, yoga, writing, art, all those things, you know. And also what I work with now is something I call simple joy, that if you focus on the things in your life that give you joy and experience joy through something you eat, something you make, something a book you read, the flowers in your garden, your cat, you know, whatever that gives you simple joy. And if you can add those together and create more and more joy in your life, then you're not so dragged down by what is not giving you joy. And that's again being conscious. Don't focus on the bad stuff. There's plenty of it out there if you want to focus on it, but rather focus on what gives you joy, and a simple joy. And then I always say, I always do what I call my gratitude practice. Every morning when I wake up and every night when I go to sleep, I do gratitude, you know, almost like a prayer of thanks for everything I've received. I'm thankful for waking up and for living, and thankful for a day of life, you know. So you're constantly focusing on what you're grateful for, what is positive, what is joyful, because our society and our culture focuses on what is negative, what we don't have, what's a danger to us, what we must fear. So there's so much of that negative pull. We try to pull towards the uplifting side. And at the same time, as you're doing your emotional work, you are letting go of all the old stuff and your consciousness is rising. It is initially hard work. But, you know, as I said to you earlier, for me, it took me maybe 10 years. And people doing it now, they can do it in a couple of months because the patterns have been set by the first wave. We've done the work, and now it's much easier to actually go through that and just reach the point you need to be. But it is a daily practice, even at this stage, and I've been doing it for years and years and years. It has to be a daily practice. You can't just sleepwalk through life and expect it to go well. It has to be a daily practice, a daily focus, and being very conscious of what you're doing, what people are doing around you, and the choices you're making.
Mm-hmm. So I'm sure in the beginning stages when people are first awakening, there's so much pain, there's blame,
Yeah,
there's anger, there is an intense reaction because nobody likes to be in pain. But there comes a point where you, if it gets intense enough, that you will surrender, because none of that is going to help you move through it.
well, there is nothing you can do.
Yeah.
You know, I remember being so angry with what was going on. I said to my guys, if you don't stop this, I'm going to, and what am I going to do to them? There's nothing I can do. You just have to go through it. But, you know, it was that feeling like I was angry with everybody, even my guides, because like this was not fair now, you know. There I was trying to do my best to be a good person, and all I was doing was falling into holes and feeling miserable, and nothing was working out. You know what it's like when you're in this dark energy, and you do have to surrender. This is what I do a lot now. Is just saying, okay, my higher self knows, spirit knows, my guides know. I just leave it to them. They know what I need and what's best for me, and I just let it go. And this is what it means to be in the divine feminine energy. It's saying, handing it over to your soul and higher self, and just allowing, surrendering.
It's faith. It's the opposite of fear.
Yeah.
Faith.
Yeah,
and how
absolutely.
do you instill faith in your life when everything is, so the traditional mindset is logic, control, action, masculine. Let me move this. Let me get this done or that done. I can get it. I can solve this problem, which
But sometimes you can't.
Yes.
You know, that is the thing. I think we all have to get to that point where we realize that we can't solve everything in this lifetime. That was one of the biggest lessons in my life, was a recognition that I can't solve everything and put a nice little tidy bow on it. Some things are not going to be solved in this lifetime. That they're too big, they're too dark, they're too whatever. I can't solve it. I can't make it nice. I just have to release it and let it go, forgive myself, forgive them, and go on with my life.
So when you say, though, solve, I can't solve it.
Yeah.
I think you're referring to, correct me if I'm wrong, we want to fix. There's all these, let's fix this.
We want to fix things to make ourselves more comfortable.
Yes.
And sometimes we just can't do that, you know, because it's not fixable, because you can't fix other people. And if they are, for example, wounded in some way that they haven't dealt with, you can't fix that. They have to deal with it. And if they're not dealing with it in this lifetime, you can't fix the situation, because it just reverts back to whatever wounding pattern there is between them and you, and whatever. So you have to understand that it's not going to be fixed, and just accept it for what it is, and accept you for what you are, them for what they are. And I think that's where the forgiveness comes in, you know, that you understand that you were playing roles or games or patterns with them without knowing consciously what you were doing, but now you do. So you can choose to not be part of that pattern anymore. and to release it and to forgive yourself and them. But most important is yourself for your contribution to that. I often feel sad, you know, I think all the games that were played and the blind, unconscious patterns that went on. It's very sad that we wasted so much of our life force and energy in that. But again, very grateful that now we don't do that anymore, because now we're conscious of what we're doing with our energy and our connections. And I focus more on what I'm creating and manifesting.
Yeah. Well, so to let go, hanging on versus letting go, hanging on versus letting go. Our human I say condition. We like things the way they are if they're going well, right? Unless, so when something that's going well that we like or we love, the changes that come in life are not always appreciated, because now I have to, what do you mean? But I like the way that it was. Why does this have to change? But everything is always changing.
But I was happy. Why are you doing this to me?
Why did this happen all of a sudden? And I was talking with a dear friend recently, and, you know, thinking about, some people have the pattern of worrying. They worry. Well, you know, almost like a grief, but this could have happened. This could have been like, everyone will find their way around it a little bit different. But I said to her, why do you worry? Why do I not worry? What is it about me that I don't worry? I'm like, so I was able to distinguish that there's something different happening within her that lets this continue to still be there.
Yeah.
And she's not the only one. There are many, you know, how do you
don't understand the concept of letting something go. It's not known to them, you know. They just don't know how to do it or even to think it.
If we were letting go, I would say, from my example, because I've been known to, I have a hard time letting go of certain things, not everything, certain things. Yeah, go. Like, you're fine. But if something is near and dear to my heart, what is letting go? And the way my mentor explained it to me was, if you have a bird, right? You love your bird, and you hold your bird, and you're loving your bird, right? You don't want to let your bird go because you love your bird, but the bird wants to go out and do what it needs to, right? If you hold that bird too tight, the bird will suffocate, the bird will not. You need to let the bird go. And if the bird wants to come back, it comes back. So I think one of the strategies I would say is to be aware of what you're attached, like, you can let go of something you're not attached to.
Of your role in
yes.
Yeah. You know, I always smile at that because, you know what, if you let the bird go, it'll probably starve to death because you've been feeding it, you know. But it is the way you look at it, you know, because it's letting go. Again, if it's something like that you love a lot, like maybe, for example, like where I am, I love the home I'm in, and I've been told I have to leave now because they want their house back, which is valid. And I was miserable for about 2 days, and you know, and then I thought, wait a minute, I need to see this as an opportunity to level up, to get something better, you know. So to rather see it that way, not that something's leaving you or coming back or whatever, but that it's a part of your path, and that if you're in a comfort zone, where I am very comfortable, then I'm really not growing. I'm not stretching myself. I'm not renewing myself. I'm just sitting in a comfort zone. And that every now and then Spirit says, okay, you need to fly a bit now. You know, you're the one who needs to fly, never mind the bird. So you have to spread your wings and fly, even if you don't want to. And I found that in my life, that I reach comfort zones. I feel like now I've worked very hard and now I'm in this comfort zone, and then they push me out and I don't want to go. But then you look back and you see, well, I needed to, because look where I am now. You know, so it's that process that yes, you love something and it's made you very happy, but it is time to let it go, as you say, let the bird go. And the bird's responsible for its own karma, so let it go and allow yourself to move on. But I think, as you say, it's easy enough when it's something we don't want, but if it's something we do enjoy, then it's more difficult. And that's where surrender comes in, because we have to understand that our soul has a plan for us. We might not know what's around the next corner.
We do not know.
You can't get there if you're holding on to the bird. You know, you're so busy with the bird, you're not going to notice maybe a peacock is coming, you know. So you just have to accept that life changes. And I really do believe when you're in this place of consciousness and grace, it's on a spiral trajectory that takes you higher and higher. So every time you let go, you're going to something better. It's not going down to something worse, unless you're pulling yourself down by your own consciousness, because you're afraid, because you're angry, whatever.
And that would be probably the biggest challenge for most people, is to, all right, the top question I get, am I an empath? Like, that is their top question. I'm like, why is this? Well, one says, well, because if I am, then I have to feel, and I don't want to feel because feeling is really painful. So they resist being an empath, like they're focusing on that. The other one,
that's a belief, you know, feeling is painful.
Yes.
It's not. It's not.
It doesn't, but it's what feeling gives you an assortment of what you are looking at. You choose what you want to feel and how you look at what
that kind of comment is from someone who's unskilled in dealing with feelings. You know, you just say to them, you need to learn how to cope with feelings, that feelings can be wonderful. And when you have what's called them negative feelings or difficult feelings, do you have the skills to deal with them, you know? And once you've got those skills, you know, to look and say, okay, I can process this, I can make different choices, whatever. Or I can be patient and I can just surrender, you know, all those, that's a skill.
It's a skill, and that's the hard thing. You don't just one day arrive to knowing how to handle something. You have to move through a stage where maybe it's a little sticky, a little uncomfortable. You try this, you have to that inner belief in yourself. I can and I will get through whatever this is, even if it's painful for me. I can get through this because I am bigger than what this is. I am not the feeling. I'm not the emotion. I am the being that's in this body that's moving through life. So you kind of change the way you relate.
And I can make choices. If I don't like the choice I'm in, I can make a different one. You're not without resources. You can make different choices. You're not stuck. If you've made a choice, you don't like it, make another one. Because that's what the flow of life is about. It's about continually making choices. It isn't about making one choice and then stuck in it forever.
Yep.
It's about the freedom to keep choosing.
Yeah. It's funny because this happens simultaneously in the same week. Two very different women, both of them asking the same questions for different reasons. So the first one was because she's afraid of feeling. And the second one is because it won't be accepted in the world. It's not, she'll be looked upon, ridiculed for being a feeler, an empath. Like, if you don't believe in yourself and who you are and stand up for that, you're allowing them to take a shovel and put you in and just keep on throwing stuff at you. Instead of, if this is how you receive information and how you process, to deny that is to deny you.
Well, she's obviously been taught that what people think about her is more important than anything else, which is a parental pattern. You know, there are lots of mothers who say you've got to be accepted, you must be what do people want you to be, you know. So she would be dealing with an inner child problem that is about not allowing herself to be authentically herself.
Yeah. And what is your thought on, you said that, the star children and the indigos, addiction, all kinds, we have huge mental health problems right now. and addiction
Yeah.
problems right now. How much of this is from the planet going through an ascension? How much maybe is from them being sensitive and not recognizing the energetic component?
Well, it's all part of the same thing, isn't it? Because it's chaotic energy, things are breaking down and they are responding. And when I did a lot of work with indigos, I remember one saying to me, I just want to have fun. That's why I take drugs. I said, why do you take drugs? Because she was driving her family insane and she was drugging out and partying. And I said, why do you do this? And she said, I just want to have fun. I'm going like, really? Are you having fun? So their way of coping with life, they know they came to the earth to enjoy life. They're not enjoying life in the system. So wigging out on drugs and whatever is one of the ways they get enjoyment or deal with their feelings or whatever, and it really is a community problem that we're not able to work with these kids and to give them something that works for them, that is fun for them, that is creative for them. Because I know I met her again about 10 years later. She came to me and she was now in her 30s. And she said she was so ashamed of what she used to be and she got her life sorted out and everything. She grew up, she grew past it and through it. But at that stage, it was her way of coping with a world that made her unhappy.
Yeah.
Not because her parents were terrible people. They were wealthy, affluent. They gave her everything she could ask for,
right.
But she just was not happy because she was very psychic. She was a healer. She was gifted. She made tons of money from modeling because she was very beautiful, which she's spent on drugs. So she had everything she needed. So a lot of these kids today come from affluent homes, but they're not happy because the way we structure society today doesn't work for them. And as I said earlier, the indigo generation came to smash it down and then to create something else. And I think this is part of this process of creating something else. And it's very tragic and sad that so many of them become addicted and some of them lose their lives because they are just unable to cope with the energy structures that are on the earth at the moment. They get trapped in them. And so helping these kids to reach higher consciousness and to gain the skills to work with energies is so important.
So interestingly enough, recently, I have a client who is an amazing empath, but a strong history of wounds, addiction. He's teaching me quite a bit as I help him. But one of the things he said, and he's proven to me in a lot of ways, is the physical body's craving or need, like what a drug will do for, like once you're exposed to the impact or the high or whatever you want to call it that you get, the bliss that you get, that physical body, that person's always at risk. They're like constant, like on a daily basis, he will think about horrible thing. Like he has to consciously keep himself clean, I guess, keep himself in recovery. Like it's a consistent day-to-day thing. And I'm like, well, once you recover, you recover. But no.
No, you know what it is drugs. I wouldn't say they take you into higher consciousness. They take you in another consciousness. They take you out of the pain and the suffering and into a happy place temporarily. Now, when your life becomes miserable and hard, that's what you crave for. You know that all you have to do is take a powder or a pill or whatever, and you'll be back in that happy place. It's a way of getting out of your problems quickly. And it takes you a long time to learn how to process and deal with your pain and whatever, and not give in to whether it's alcohol or drugs or whatever that's going to lift you out of it, but very temporarily, because your body is craving a temporary release. Because the moment you go into negative feelings, your body takes it on. You know, your blood pressure goes up, you contract, you become depressed, heavy, whatever. It may be overeating. So you look at ways to dampen down the pain, and drugs are very good at that. That's what the, you know, a lot of the big problem is the opioids and the fentanyls, because that's what they do. They anesthetize you, so you don't feel these things. And so people know that whenever they're in stress and they're feeling bad, pop a drug, you know.
As opposed to
Sorting through
sorting it out, and my heart goes out to them in a sense, because depending on what circumstances they were born into and what situations, this is I don't think anybody in their right mind, anybody would choose to live a life where they were feeling that intensity of panic on a daily basis.
Well, this is what happens when your the soul and the body are not, what's the word I want? The soul is too sensitive for the body. You know, the soul's very sensitive and it can't cope with the body's experiences. And what the drugs do and the alcohol does, kicks the soul out, you know, or kicks you up. So you're not feeling the soul, or you're not feeling the body. You're not feeling the pain the body's in. So it's about aligning the soul and the body, so the soul can feel comfortable in the body, and the body feel comfortable for the soul, because the soul is what is sensitive. You know, it's the soul seeing and tasting and touching through the senses. So when the body's feeling bad, the soul is feeling it, and it gets anxious, doesn't like it, wants to be out of there.
Yeah.
It is part of a spiritual crisis.
As far as somebody in that position finding their way home, their way to a more peaceful, happy, not this daily tug of war with themselves. I mean, this is a more intense position than your awakening, or probably my awakening was, because my body, as much as my body, my emotions, my mental were all at the same time moving through things, but there wasn't this intense, like I'm sure there was pain, but my body I never escaped that pain that way. So I don't know. I'm just wondering, you said the soul is too sensitive for the body. So some people come in with this problem and almost like it predisposes them.
Yeah. But what I found, because at one stage I was relying on painkillers, because I would get headaches, and the painkillers would also make me feel calmer.
Yeah.
And I realized this was setting myself up for something, you know, because it was becoming addiction. And I switched over to homeopathy so that I could deal with all the symptoms I was having without having to take a painkiller, or something that could become a potential addiction. And I realized, when I looked at my family, there was both my parents would never have called themselves addicts, but my father had migraines and my mother had hay fever. So they were both on stuff, you know, and I realized that the potential to be on stuff was there, and I needed to not be on stuff. So homeopathy allows you to work with the energy without getting involved in long-term reliance on pharmaceuticals, which I really, for empathic people and for people who are ascending and going through these dark night of the soul, I really don't think that psychotropic drugs are what you need. No, they really don't help at all. In fact, they make you worse.
Celia, what's your thought on bipolar? Do you have
as an energy, or
is this another situation of the body and the soul almost overtaking, the soul bringing through too much energy into the body, and then the body reacting? Because bipolar highs, lows. I've met some, I was best friends with one, and it just, to me, I found they're very intuitive, very empathic, but somehow it's spiraling. The energy isn't grounding. It's almost like too much or too little. Like they,
Yeah,
you
you
know,
know, it's a difficult question to answer because I worked with bipolar people at one stage. I saw quite a few of them, and I found it terrifying because the energy they carry is so powerful.
yeah,
You know, it comes to like an express train,
yeah,
and then it's gone, and they sink down into this terrible dark place. And um, I found when I was working with several bipolar people, it was almost like this entity energy that was mocking me. You can't heal me. You can't do this. Who do you think you are? You know, this is what one of them said to me. So I don't know, you know, there could be bipolar situations where it is just a huge energy imbalance. It could be something else. There could be different manifestations of different levels of energy, entity. I don't know. I would be hesitant to give it one label because I've seen so many different ways that it's manifested. But I do think it's a very difficult thing to work with.
yeah.
And because it seems to strike just randomly, you know, there often is no real trigger. People just go from
Well,
being
yeah,
depressed and then into this whoosh of energy, and they are madly creative. And then, but it is an imbalance, and it is coming from, I don't know, it's the soul, the subconscious, or where it's coming from.
yeah.
So,
Some people are like, well, that's a mental imbalance, right? You have
an
bipolar.
imbalance of some kind. I don't think it's mental. Um, I think it's deeper than that. It's
Yeah,
coming from very deep levels of consciousness. So it could be stuff, uh, childhood stuff. I found with people who became schizophrenic or bipolar
mhm.
when I was doing my work with indigos, that it happened around 17, 16, 17, 18. Something happened and they switched into that, and it became a coping mechanism for them. And that would be when they were in their the years when they developed the solar plexus. So it could be a mental problem, but there's something that triggers, and it prevents them from having to be a functioning human. They can go off and be crazy, you know, because that's how they work.
Well,
So
yeah. One of,
what I'm saying is I don't have any answers, and I don't think it's a simple problem.
no,
When I
no.
worked with that, I did struggle to try um, and I found that some people did respond, but others were just like, no. And I would say it is a very deep wounding in their teenage years, probably.
Right.
So the person you were working with, be interesting to look at what happened around 16, 17, you know, if anything major happened in his life. Sometimes find there was a divorce or a death or something that kicked them into
The
that. But
interesting
anyway,
part, like one of my clients, her mother was was intelligent, highly capable, and then I want to say early 20s, she started exhibiting schizophrenia.
yeah, but you'll probably find the trigger event was
Yeah,
late
yeah, yeah.
16s. Yeah.
Um, but what she said, because she ended up caring for her mother in her old before she died, she said it seemed to wane. Whatever had a hold was so intense when she was young. It
Yeah.
seemed to wear off as she got older. She got to know her mother, which is very interesting. And you know, in the work that we do, and you've run across that, there are things that can attach to the body, that can
Yeah.
attach to us spiritually. And that's
Yeah.
why healing, energy healing, like there are different approaches and different methods, but
Well, that's what I think happens in this, you know, that some trauma happens, and maybe some kind of attachment happens in the physical
yeah,
that washes in energy and creates these imbalances.
yeah.
That's what I would imagine. I haven't actually thought about this for a while, but that was my experience when working with these kinds of people. Very difficult and very tragic because they're often very sensitive, very gifted people
Yeah.
who have somehow chosen not to incarnate fully and to cycle through these energies so that they don't have to Quite often they don't have to leave home. They can just be looked after and medicated. and
Maybe it
whatever.
serves in some way. Their lifetime is supposed to be that way for some reason, but it's just
Yeah.
the very, well, it's like some old souls decide to incarnate into a body that's not functional, really. And I think that's by design. I don't think that's an accident that happens, but we're never going to know because we don't know everything, do we?
No. And I think the only reason we want to really understand it is because we want to help people.
Yes,
Again,
absolutely.
you're to the point where do you need to know everything to be of service to people?
You don't.
You know, do they want you to be of service to them? One of the things I learned from working with these kids is there are times, again, when you can't fix them. They just need to be left to go on and find their own way forward.
Yeah, absolutely.
You can only work with those who want to be helped
Mhm.
and will find their way to you.
So, Celia, I think I've kept you on this interview for a while.
It's so interesting talking to you. I hope
Makes-
some other people find it interesting too.
Oh, I love all these topics. So, do you want to tell people where they can find you and what things you can help them with so that they,
Okay.
you know?
Well, my website is starchildglobal.com, which you can see down there, title. And you can get to my website. At the moment, I'm doing consultations, I do mentoring, and I do Zoom online courses. So there's several things you can sign up for, or my newsletter. You can also sign up for free newsletter. And of course, I'm on Facebook, which is where we met.
Mhm.
And I do post regularly to Facebook because I have a lot of people I work with and connect with on Facebook. So yeah, I'd love for people to connect with my work and see what I'm doing. And thank you for this opportunity.
Oh, you're welcome. Thank you. Thank you. All right, everyone. So I hope you enjoyed this. Any questions or whatnot, any comments, any feedback, certainly reach out to Celia or reach out to me. We're here. We're here to support you. And I hope you have a great rest of your day.